Welcome everybody, and welcome to an update on this astrology work that I have been sharing for the last 8 to 9 months. So as some of you might know, I've been studying astrology thoroughly for the last 4+ years now, and I started giving readings earlier last year, about in April, May. I started receiving the invitation to give readings. And it was after a couple of months of doing that I started having a couple of instances with some people where I felt really strongly drawn to look at the birth chart through the sidereal zodiac perspective. The sidereal zodiac perspective is a perspective of looking at the planets as they are actually standing in the sky. So the tropical zodiac, which is widely used nowadays in Western astrology, is actually based on how the constellations were visible from Earth about 2,000 years ago. So about 2,000 years ago, if you would look at the eastern horizon during the spring equinox, so at the 21st of March, if you would look at the eastern horizon, the sun would rise in the sign of Aries. And so Aries was made the sign that begins on the 21st of March. Now what happens though is everything in existence is dynamic and moves. So does our Earth's axis. So the Earth, spins around its axis in this slight, I think 45-degree angle or something. And so, like tilted angle. And this axis has a slight wobble. It's not only going like this, it's like a bit wobbling, And so this wobble contributes to us then not seeing exactly in the same angle the sky as we used to see it 2,000 years ago. This wobble is called, or also referred to as, the precession of the equinoxes, meaning that this slight wobble means that our perspective onto the sky moves. So it is said that approximately every 72 years the perspective therefore moves by 1 degree, which is obviously very small, but it adds up, right? So 2,000 years is then quite a lot of degrees. About 25 degrees, I think. I'm not doing the calculation right now, but 25 degree-ish is where we're at. This means that currently, on the 21st of March, when we look at the eastern horizon, the sun actually rises in the sign of Pisces. And this also means that most of us who are born, or who believe that they are born with a sun in Aries, for example, are actually born with a sun in Pisces. So this slight wobble has been happening, obviously, and has been recorded for some thousands of years. And it will lead to that in another few thousands of years, we literally will see the sign of Virgo, Libra, Scorpio at the eastern horizon on the 21st of March, if we continue to keep this current calendar. So you see how over thousands of years this adds up. And only after approximately like 24,000 years, it was something, about 24,000 years, this wobble will contribute to us again seeing the sun rise in Aries at the spring equinox, but only in about 24,000 years. Until then, it'll literally move, like our perspective will move through all the zodiac signs. So every zodiac sign is going to be at the spring equinox on the eastern horizon at some point in the northern hemisphere. So I personally heard about this way of doing astrology earlier last year, and I just kind of rejected it. I was like, oh yeah, whatever. But it kept coming back to me this nagging little thought, or in the back of my mind, it kept coming back to me. And actually, Vedic astrology uses sidereal perspective to some degree, I will say, and explain a bit more to that. So also earlier last year, I received a Vedic astrology reading for the first time, and there already all my signs, or all my planets, were moved backwards by one sign. So, you know, I was suddenly Sun in Pisces, Moon in Aquarius, and I was already experiencing this kind of identity shift and being like, oh my God, I'm not a Moon in Pisces now, like I'm a Moon in Aquarius. I don't know if I like it. I was really attached to certain planetary constellations in my chart. And it was really then throughout this past year that I had an increasingly strong confrontation with this inner feeling of the sidereal zodiac perspective. Because then there was a night, or actually there's quite a few evenings or nights that I'm awake and I go outside and I look into the night sky. And oftentimes I take my phone and open a sky map and look at the sky. And in one of those nights, it happened that I suddenly saw the moon, that it was, according to the actual sky map, the moon was in a particular sign. And according to tropical astrology, the moon was actually not in that sign. You know, like for example, I might have seen that the moon was in Cancer. And in the tropical astrology society, everybody was talking about the moon was in Leo. And so the tropical astrology is not based on the actual current constellations. So what I've also come to hear about this whole history of astrology is that astrology originally was created or was rooted in actual astronomy, and now it's not rooted in the current actual astronomy. And so I had a really huge process, or huge maybe not, but I had a really big process with this, because I was obviously so ingrained with my own birth chart and the signs and the planets in which the signs in which the planets were placed according to the tropical, and it was really like an identity death. I was like, fuck, I was really I was identifying with that. But the interesting thing is that the more I gave in or surrendered to the idea of sidereal, of actual constellational astrology, I felt a deeper full body resonance. I could personally really feel how the tropical is more a mental, intellectual chatter, and how the true sidereal is resonating throughout my whole system or being much more profoundly. You know, going from the head through the center line of the body, through the heart, deeper down into my root, my womb, my pelvic space. So I personally just feel a stronger resonance with that. So I still use the perspective of evolutionary astrology, you know, very Pluto-oriented, looking at planets that are an aspect to Pluto, if there are planets in aspect to the moon's nodes, to the nodal axis. This is also still very strong in my conviction, in my understanding, that it's very powerful to enter the birth chart more looking at the moon's nodes and at Pluto and the ruling planets of the moon's nodes. And so another thing that's coming in here, though, into this actual constellational astrology is that there is a 13th sign. And it's called Ophiuchus. It's called the serpent bearer. It's also, he was also known as Aesculapius or something, more of a medicine man in ancient Greek mythology. And I hope to share more about all this in the future, as I'm also continuing to deepen my study with this. But Ophiuchus is actually, when looked at the zodiac belt, which surrounds our perspective from planet Earth, Ophiuchus takes up a little space between the signs of Scorpio and Sagittarius. It's a small space, but it takes up a space. And it is said that this sign was removed at some point because 12 is just a more even number. It's easier to make a calendar out of. It's easier, 12, you can, like the 360 degrees of a circle, you can divide by 12 and you get 30 degrees per part. This is why also in tropical astrology, each sign takes up 30% of the chart, which again is not according to the actual constellation. If we look at the actual constellation, it's highly interesting. As an example, the sign of Pisces takes up 42%. The sign of Scorpio takes up 13%. The sign of Gemini takes up like 25%. Ophiuchus takes up 13%. Virgo takes up 48%. Degrees, oh my God, I'm talking about percent. Degrees. So it's wild, basically. Aries takes up 21 degrees. Taurus takes up 36 degrees. And so on. So it's uneven. It's completely like not even, and it's understandable that at some point humans wanted to make it more simple, you know, as we want to do it sometimes. Funnily though, as we want to kind of put things into boxes and simplify them, we actually distort them also and confuse ourselves and distort ourselves by that. And so I personally just come to really the conclusion for now, in the sense that this true sidereal, there's a really beautiful bird out there right now, the astrology that's based on the actual constellations and the astronomy is just so much more resonant. And so, of course, for a lot of us that can mean an identity death. And it's up to each of us if we want to go there. I have still heard that people resonate with the tropical. Personally, I also sometimes still feel some resonance, but I have to honestly say, I don't know if that's, you know, still residue from just being identified with it for so long, obviously. But there's also a sense of relief and liberation in feeling this true sidereal. Personally, I feel it's more resonant with the deeper part of myself, you know, the soul self, if we want to call it that. So maybe one other thing to add, what I've also noticed that it's actually also not a complete identity death or shift, because the planets will still be in the same houses, for example. The planets will still have the same aspects to each other. So, you know, if we have a sun squaring Uranus, we have a very Uranian or Aquarian personality, and that, so we might have in the tropical our sun in Aquarius, and then in the sidereal the sun is suddenly in Capricorn. But if the sun is squaring Uranus, there is still a strong Aquarian energy present in us and in our life. So, and this is something I've come to see, that some deeper underlying truths about ourselves will not go away with this shift. The deeper self just is still present. And this is where I also find evolutionary astrology really beautiful, because where in the house that Pluto is placed in, that is also an energy that's quite strongly present in us. So, you know, if we have a Pluto in the first house, there tends to be a strong Aryan energy in the person. And that obviously will not go away by the sign that Pluto moves according to a tropical or sidereal. So it is also not an entire complete shift. It is a shift, but there are also still things that stay the same, so to say. So I just wanted to mention that as well. So, that being said, If you are resonating with this, if you are curious to receive a reading, I'm giving readings according to this perspective now. So if you're interested, you can reach out. And if you're watching this and you have already received a reading with me and it was still in the tropical perspective back then I invite you to reach out as well, and I'm available to give a reading based on a donation price that you can freely choose after you receive the reading. You can receive the reading and feel what feels right for you to give then, because I want to make this available, this perspective, and see how it feels for you as well. Okay, so yeah, I will continue to most likely speak about this and my learnings and studies and share about, you know, astrology and what I come to see. And I wish you a good day for now and speak to you again through the camera soon. Bye bye.